Hi, I'm Monica, and this is Brimming Over and Flexible Perspective. So, we all have situations where we are adamant about something, we're passionate about something, and we have someone else who is just as adamant and passionate about the same thing, but on the opposite side from us. That happens all the time in our personal lives, or at least in mine, and it happens hourly, it seems, in our national life. Our national conversations these days are just divisive and vitriolic, and it seems that there is no consensus in sight. Well, flexible perspective is where you keep having the same conversation over and over, no one budges, and then you decide, I'm going to look at this from another angle. I'm going to pull out a different thread to examine with the other side to see if we can get closer to a consensus. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do today. My flexible perspective is about Confederate artifacts. So right now the national conversation is there's a debate where where the debate seems to be solely about whether Confederate artifacts are racist or not. I say let's set aside that debate, that general theme, and look at it from another perspective. So here we go. Let's start with facts, because with flexible perspective, we always want to start with facts. Facts. The United States of America in 1860 or 1861, it started with 2 states, but a total of 11 states seceded from the Union. They separated themselves from the United States of America and said that they would set up a separate nation, the Confederate States. Okay, so toward the end of setting up their own nation or separate country, the Confederate States, they had an interim president, Jefferson Davis. They had a capital. I think at first it was in Alabama, and then it moved to Richmond, Virginia. They had their own currency. They had a constitution, and they had an emblem of their hoped for freedom from the United States of America in the Confederate flag. So we had, and still have, the Stars and Stripes, and they had the Stars and Bars. Okay, so there was acrimony about the succession, obviously, and eventually a war ensued, the Civil War. It was, of course, we all know it was bloody. It was a hard-fought war. There were many casualties, and in the end, after a long while, in the end, the Confederate States lost. The Union won. The Confederate States were defeated. They were no more. They were now back to being a part of the United States of America. Their president was no longer Jefferson Davis. It was once again Abraham Lincoln. We were one nation again, moving forward together for the most part toward a common goal. And that goal was the health and prosperity of the entire United States of America. So here's the thing that we can all agree on. Throughout time, there have been wars. There have been nations that fought wars against, nation against nation, brother against brother, all that. Whomever wins, the vanquished state has to sort of slink off into the sunset, and the winner, the victor, gets to kind of call the shots. Okay, that's just the way it is. When the United States of America won and the Confederacy lost, then the Confederate flag could not be elevated. Confederate soldiers could not be revered as heroes of America. They can be heroes of the Confederacy, but we must understand and keep in perspective, the Confederacy is a defeated nation, was a defeated nation. So it's not reasonable now for us to have government buildings that have statues of Confederate soldiers or Confederate generals. It's not reasonable for states to fly the Confederate flag. It's not right for American taxpayers to pay for the elevation of Confederate artifacts. Now, there is one exception. History is important. We have to study it, we have to remember it. So if we have Confederate statues in museums, if we have Confederate currency in museums for study so that we can understand the history of our nation, so we can keep it in proper perspective, no problem. But it's just, there is no legitimate argument for elevating the tools, the emblems, or the people of the vanquished nation, of the vanquished Confederate States. So here's another part about this. Here's another perspective. Just a few years ago, every week we were hearing complaints that some people were dishonoring the flag. We heard those complaints from the top to the bottom. I would say to you that if you fly the Confederate flag next to the American flag, it's quite clear that you are dishonoring the American flag. Because again, the American flag is about the Union, it's about the entire country. The Confederate flag was about that section of the country that decided to separate itself and go its own way, and again, lost. So, okay, so we cut off some of my video because apparently it was too long, even though I think I had some really great stuff. But anyway, to conclude, we have to stop acting as though the Civil War, the war between the states, was a draw. It wasn't. There was a clear victor and there was a side that clearly lost. And so we have to keep that in proper perspective. By the way, how you view it individually, think what you will. But as a nation, we have to move forward, leaving the Confederacy behind us, and move forward as a nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.